Imagine for a moment, you're in a coffee shop, watching two different men approach women. The first uses all the techniques he learned online, memorized phrases, studied gestures, a carefully constructed persona. He gets a few numbers, maybe a few dates, but his relationships never go beyond the surface. The second man? He's just himself. His words flow naturally, his presence is magnetic not because of any gimmicks, but because of an indefinable quality that emanates from his very being. His relationships are deep, lasting, and genuinely satisfying. The difference between these two men is not in the techniques they know, but in the mental codes that each one carries in his mind. And today, I will unlock these codes in you. Did you know that 73% of relationships that start with games and manipulation end in less than 6 months? Meanwhile, relationships based on authenticity and personal development have a success rate 4 times higher. The math is simple, but the application is where most fail. More than 2,000 years ago, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus discovered something revolutionary. They realized that true power, true attraction, comes not from the outside in, but from the inside out. These men, who ruled empires and influenced millions, left a legacy not of external conquest, but of internal mastery. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions or being cold. It's about developing such a solid character, such an authentic presence, that you naturally attract people who resonate with your true essence. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to win anyone, because the right people are naturally drawn to who you have become. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 10 Stoic principles that will revolutionize not only your relationships, but your entire life. These aren't tricks or techniques, they're codes of transformation that, once unlocked in your mind, will forever change the way you relate to the world. Get ready. By the end of this video, you will no longer be the same man who clicked play. The codes you are about to discover have the power to transform your relational reality permanently. Let's start by unlocking the first and most fundamental code of all. First, how about subscribing to our channel? That way, you'll continue receiving valuable content like this. First code, self-knowledge and inner virtue. The first code that needs to be unlocked in your mind is this: you cannot give what you do not have. It is impossible to attract genuine love if you have not developed a healthy relationship with yourself. It is impossible to inspire trust if you do not trust your own character. It is impossible to create deep connections if you are a stranger to yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful emperor of his time, wrote in his personal meditations, "Know thyself, for in self-knowledge you find the key to all relationships." He understood something most men today don't. Real attraction is not about impressing others, but about expressing your highest nature. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues that form the basis of a magnetic character. The first is wisdom, not just intellectual knowledge, but the wisdom of knowing your own values, limitations, and potential. When you know exactly who you are and what you stand for, you stop trying to be who you think others want you to be. This authenticity is magnetic because it is rare. The second virtue is justice, treating others with fairness and genuine respect. Not as objects to be conquered, but as complex human beings with their own journeys. Women instantly sense when you see them as whole people versus when you see them as just validation for your ego. The third is courage, not physical courage, but the emotional courage to be vulnerable and authentic. The courage to admit when you don't know something, to show your real interests, to talk about your passions even if they're nerdy or different. Authentic vulnerability creates real intimacy. The fourth virtue is temperance, emotional balance and self-control. It doesn't mean being robotic, but it does mean not being a slave to your impulses and emotions. It means responding consciously instead of reacting automatically. But how do you develop these virtues in practice? Start with Stoic journaling. Every night before you go to sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. What virtues did I practice today? Where did I act against my values? And how can I be more authentic tomorrow? This simple exercise begins to build the awareness that is the foundation of all real change. Identify your core values. Not the values you think you should have, but the ones that genuinely resonate with your soul. If you value creativity, stop hiding your artistic tendencies to appear more masculine. If you value intellectuality, stop pretending you prefer superficial conversation. Your values are your internal GPS. When you honor them, you radiate an energy that is impossible to fake. Work on your shadows and blind spots. Every man has aspects of himself that he would rather hide. But these shadows, when not consciously integrated, leak out in subtle ways that sabotage relationships. If you fear abandonment, you may become possessive. If you fear inadequacy, you may become arrogant. Inner work is not optional, it is the price of emotional freedom. I know a man who spent years pretending to like clubbing and nightlife because he thought that was what attracted women. He was constantly exhausted, attracting people who had nothing in common with him, and his relationships lasted weeks, not months. When he finally had the courage to be authentic about his love of books, nature walks, and deep conversations, something magical happened. He began attracting women who shared his true interests. His current relationship has been going on for 3 years and continues to grow. The difference between genuine confidence and arrogance is simple. Confidence comes from knowing your worth without having to prove it to anyone. Arrogance comes from insecurity disguised as superiority. Women detect this difference instantly, even if they can't articulate exactly how they feel. But here's the fascinating paradox. The more you know and accept yourself, the less you need the approval of others to feel complete. And it's precisely this emotional independence that makes you irresistibly attractive. It's as if the universe conspires to bring people into your life who resonate with your authenticity. Self-knowledge is only the first code. But without it, all the other codes will remain locked. It is impossible to control what you do not understand, and it is impossible to understand without first looking honestly within. And it is precisely this control, the second fundamental code, that we need to talk about now. Second code: control what depends on you. The second code that is about to be unlocked in your mind will revolutionize not only your relationships, but your entire experience of life. It is the code of the dichotomy of control, the most fundamental pillar of Stoic philosophy and the key to unshakable confidence. Epictetus, who rose from a slave to become one of the most respected philosophers in history, discovered a truth that most men never learn: you are completely free the moment you stop trying to control what is outside your control, and take full responsibility for what is within it. Imagine your mind as a kingdom. In this kingdom, there are 2 distinct territories: the territory of sovereignty and the territory of illusion. In the territory of sovereignty, you are the absolute king. Your decisions are law, your efforts produce results, your power is real and tangible. In the territory of illusion, you are just a beggar disguised as a king, wasting endless energy trying to control forces that will never be under your command. Here's what is in your control: your actions, your words, your behaviors. You can choose to exercise, take care of your appearance, develop your social skills, learn to communicate better. You can choose your attitude, the energy you transmit, how you respond to situations. You can choose to be kind or rude, present or distracted, curious or judgmental. But here's what is not in your control, and this is the part that ruins most men's peace of mind: the other person's feelings for you. Their past experiences, their traumas, their physical preferences, their ideal type. Whether they're ready for a relationship, whether they've just gotten out of something complicated, whether they're going through a tough time in their life. Most men live in the realm of illusion, wasting mental energy trying to decipher signals, interpreting every message, analyzing every gesture, trying to figure out strategies to make someone like them. It's like trying to control the weather by getting mad at the clouds. But when you truly internalize this code, something extraordinary happens. All the energy you wasted trying to control the uncontrollable becomes available to invest in what really matters: becoming the best version of yourself. I'm going to give you a powerful exercise. Every day when you wake up, make 2 lists. On the first list, write down everything about your relationships that is within your control. I can be more interesting by developing new hobbies. I can be more attractive by taking better care of my health. I can be a better conversationalist by practicing active listening. On the second list, write down what is not within your control: whether she will respond to me today, whether she will want to see me again, whether she is interested in a serious relationship. Now comes the magic part: you are only allowed to spend mental and emotional energy on the first list. Whenever your mind starts to ruminate on the second list, you gently redirect it to the first. It's like training a muscle. It's hard at first, but with practice it becomes automatic. The result? You stop emanating that desperate energy that drives people away. Instead, you start radiating the calm confidence of someone who is focused on their own growth. And ironically, that's exactly the energy that naturally attracts people. I know a man who used to stay up late analyzing every interaction with women, trying to figure out what he had done wrong when he didn't get the response he expected. He was living in delusional territory, trying to be a relationship detective. When he learned the dichotomy of control, everything changed. He stopped stalking Instagram profiles looking for clues. He stopped sending multiple messages when he didn't get an immediate response. Instead, he focused on becoming someone more interesting, more developed, more present. The results were amazing. Women began to notice a shift in his energy. He was no longer trying to prove anything or get validation. He was simply being a heightened version of himself and letting the right people naturally be drawn to that. But here's the deeper part of this code: when you stop trying to control whether someone likes you, you're finally free to figure out if you really like them. Most men are so focused on being accepted that they never stop to evaluate whether the person is actually compatible with them. It's like being so worried about getting hired for a job that you forget to evaluate whether you actually want to work there. When you operate from the territory of sovereignty, you become selective in a healthy way. You're not desperate for any relationship to work, you're interested in finding the right one. And this energy shift is noticeable and magnetic. Real control is not about manipulating others into doing what you want. Real control is about having complete mastery over your own responses to life. And when you develop that kind of control, you are prepared for the next code, a code that will test your emotional maturity like no other. Third code: accept rejection with dignity. The third code that is about to be unlocked will definitively separate the boys from the men. It is the code of amor fati, literally love of fate, the ability not only to accept rejection, but to embrace it as a necessary and even beneficial part of your journey. Most men live in fear of rejection. This fear paralyzes them, makes them act inauthentically, turns them into diminished versions of themselves. They avoid emotional risks, never express real interest, live in a comfort zone that is, in fact, a zone of mediocrity. But the Stoics discovered something revolutionary: rejection is not the opposite of success, it is an integral part of it. Marcus Aurelius fought dozens of losing battles before becoming one of the greatest leaders in history. Seneca lost fortunes and rebuilt them multiple times. They understood that adversity is not an obstacle to growth, it is the very engine of growth. Let's unlock the truth about rejection that no one tells you: it's natural, necessary, and, believe it or not, a gift in disguise. When someone rejects you, they're literally doing you a favor. They're saving you months or years of a forced, incompatible relationship that would have ended much more painfully in the future. Think of it this way: compatibility is specific and personal. Just as you have a certain type of music, food, or movie that you prefer, people have different personalities, energy levels, and lifestyles that they are attracted to. When someone isn't interested in you, it's not a judgment on your worth as a human being, it's simply a matter of compatibility. But here's where the magic happens: how you handle rejection reveals more about your character than how you handle acceptance. And here's the secret that few men know: your response to rejection can be more attractive than any seduction technique ever created. Imagine two different reactions to the same situation. You ask a woman out on a date and she politely declines. Typical reaction: get upset, try to argue, insist, or worse, get resentful and say something nasty. Stoic reaction: thank her for her honesty, wish her the best, and walk away from the situation with your dignity intact. Which of these reactions do you think she will remember positively? Which one shows true confidence and maturity? I know of cases where men were initially rejected but handled it with such class and dignity that the woman reconsidered her decision weeks later. Not because they persisted, but because their maturity in the rejection revealed a character she found attractive. Here's the reframing exercise that will change your perspective forever. Every time you get rejected, ask yourself these questions. What does this situation teach me about myself? How can I use this experience to become a better person? What qualities do I need to develop? Turn every rejection into data for your personal development. Practice gratitude for the clarity you've received. Instead of ruminating about what could have been different, be grateful that you don't have to guess where you stand. Uncertainty is far more toxic than outright rejection. When someone is honest about not being interested, they give you the gift of clarity. You can stop investing your emotional energy there and direct it toward more promising opportunities. But I'll tell you the deepest secret about rejection. It's a filter that protects you from the wrong relationships and directs you toward the right ones. Every no brings you closer to the right yes. Every person who doesn't value what you offer makes you available to the person who will deeply value it. A friend of mine was rejected by 7 women in a row over the course of 2 years. Instead of becoming bitter or giving up, he used each experience as feedback. He noticed patterns. He was attracting women who valued material status more than emotional connection. He adjusted not his personality but where and how he met people. The 8th woman he met became his wife. They've now been married for 5 years, and he says he's grateful for each of those 7 rejections. They guided him to the right person. Here's the mindset that will transform your life. From why always with me, to what can I learn? From victimhood to personal empowerment. From trying to avoid rejection to seeing it as a natural part of the process of finding real compatibility. When you develop this mindset, something interesting happens. You stop being afraid to express genuine interest. You stop playing games to avoid rejection. You become emotionally brave because you know you can handle any outcome with dignity. And that emotional courage, that ability to be vulnerable without neediness, that dignity in adversity, those qualities are magnetic. They attract people who also have emotional maturity. They filter out immature people who play games and drama. Amor Fati is not about enjoying rejection. It's about understanding that rejection is an integral part of a life lived courageously. It's about maintaining your dignity and growing through adversity. And when you master this code, you're ready for the next level, the art of authentic communication that flows naturally from this new mindset. 4th code, honest and direct communication. The 4th code that is being unlocked now will revolutionize every conversation you have for the rest of your life. It is the code of authentic communication, the lost art of speaking and listening in a way that creates real connection rather than superficial performance. Most men approach communication like a game of chess, calculating every move, rehearsing phrases, trying to say the right thing to get the desired result. They live in fear of saying the wrong thing, so they say what they think the other person wants to hear. The result? Soulless conversations, shallow connections, and relationships built on false foundations. The Stoics had a radically different approach. For them, the virtue of truth was paramount. Not brutal truth that hurts unnecessarily, but compassionate truth that honors both you and the other person. They understood something that modern culture has forgotten. Authenticity is not only morally superior, it is pragmatically more effective. Here's why games and manipulation always fail in the long run. They create relationships based on false premises. When you use a fake persona to lure someone in, you're essentially setting yourself up for trouble down the road. Either you'll have to keep up that mask forever, which is exhausting and unsustainable, or eventually your true personality will emerge and the person will feel cheated. But authentic communication does the work of filtering out incompatible people early on, while attracting people who resonate with who you really are. It's more effective and creates deeper, longer-lasting relationships. Let's start with the principles of Stoic communication. First, be clear about your intentions from the start. If you're interested in someone romantically, be honest about it. Don't pretend you want to be just friends and hope they change their mind. Don't use emotional manipulation or indirect games. Simply be clear about your intentions while fully respecting their right to not be interested. Second principle, be honest about your feelings and interests. If you like someone, say so. If something is bothering you, say so. If you need space, ask for it. If you want more intimacy, say so. Most relationships die not because of incompatibility, but because of a lack of honest communication about needs and feelings. Third principle, consistency between words and actions. Your actions should reflect your words. If you say you're interested, your behaviors should demonstrate genuine interest. If you say you respect her boundaries, prove it by consistently respecting them. Integrity is when your words, actions, and values are aligned. Fourth principle, respect the other person's boundaries. Authentic communication doesn't mean saying everything that's on your mind. It means being honest within appropriate boundaries. Respecting when someone doesn't want to talk about something, giving space when asked, not pressuring for emotional or physical intimacy. Now, how does this work in practice? Instead of using canned phrases or manipulative techniques, you speak from your authentic experience. Instead of "you have beautiful eyes," which she's probably heard 1,000 times, you might say, "There's something about your energy that makes me feel more present when I'm with you." The former is an empty cliché, the latter is an authentic observation about your personal experience. Instead of trying to impress by talking about your accomplishments or possessions, you share your genuine passions and curiosities. I spend a lot of time thinking about, I've recently been fascinated by, something that changed my perspective was, these phrases open the door to real conversations about who you are, not just what you've done. The art of active listening is equally important. Most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. They're mentally formulating their next sentence as the other person speaks. But Stoic listening is different. It's about being genuinely curious about the other person's experience. It's about asking questions that show you really want to understand their perspective. Instead of "how was your day?" which often generates automatic responses, try "what energized you most today," or "what part of your day do you wish had lasted longer?" These questions invite deeper answers and reveal more about the person's personality. Here's an example of how authentic communication completely changed a client's romantic life. He used to use one-liners, tell exaggerated stories about his conquests, and always agree with everything women said to avoid conflict. His relationships were superficial and short-lived. When he started being authentic, admitting when he didn't know something, expressing his real opinions, even when they differed, sharing his appropriate vulnerabilities, something magical happened. He began attracting women who appreciated his honesty and wanted to get to know the real him, not his fake persona. But there's a crucial difference between honesty and brutal honesty. Compassionate honesty considers timing, form, and necessity. You can be completely authentic without being cruel or insensitive. It's about speaking your truth in a way that honors both you and the other person. Authentic communication also includes having the courage to have difficult conversations when necessary. If something is bothering you in the relationship, address it directly instead of letting resentment build up. If you have unmet needs, communicate them clearly instead of waiting for the other person to guess. When you master this code, you'll never again have to remember what you said to whom, because you're always speaking your truth. You'll never again have to maintain exhausting masks, because you're being consistently authentic. And you attract people who love you for who you really are, not who you're pretending to be. But authentic communication works best when combined with the next code, a code that will free you from the prison of expectations and turn every interaction into an opportunity for growth, regardless of the outcome. Fifth code, detachment from results. The fifth code that is being unlocked in your mind is perhaps the most paradoxical and powerful of all. It is the code of detachment from outcomes, the art of fully engaging with life while remaining free from the grip of anxiety about outcomes. Most men turn every romantic interaction into a mental transaction. They make an emotional investment and expect a specific return. They send a message and wait anxiously for a response. They ask someone out on a date and are already mentally planning a second one. They meet someone interesting and immediately start planning a future together. This transactional mindset creates a heavy, desperate energy that people feel instinctively. It's like going to a party with the sole intention of making professional connections. Everyone can tell that you're not really there, that you're just using the situation for your own personal gain. But Stoic detachment is completely different. It's not indifference or lack of interest. It's the opposite, it's being so present and engaged that you don't need a specific outcome to validate the experience. It's like a musician who plays with such passion that he doesn't care if there's one person in the audience or 1,000. He's playing because he loves the music, not for approval. Let me explain the outcome neurosis that keeps most men stuck in anxiety cycles. When you have specific expectations about how an interaction should unfold, you are essentially betting your peace of mind on variables you have no control over. You become tense, calculating, and less spontaneous. Your attention is divided between being present and monitoring whether you are getting the desired outcome. Imagine two men on a date. The first man is mentally checking boxes. She laughed at my joke, check. She agreed to share dessert, check. She didn't check her phone, check. He's so focused on keeping score that he's not really getting to know the person in front of him. The second man is genuinely curious about who she is, interested in her stories, and engaged in the conversation. He's not trying to achieve anything other than an authentic human connection. Which of these men do you think she'll want to see again? Which one is offering a richer, more memorable experience? Here's the fascinating paradox: the less you need a specific outcome, the more likely you are to achieve positive results. When you're not desperate for approval, approval flows naturally. When you're not trying to impress, you become impressive simply by being authentic. But how do you develop this detachment in practice? First, practice Stoic meditation focused on the present moment. Every time your mind starts to wander to will she respond to me? Does she like me? Will we see each other again? Gently bring your attention back to what is happening right now. Second, change your metric of success. Instead of measuring the success of an interaction by getting a phone number or a second date, measure it by how present you were, how authentic you were, how much you learned about the other person. These metrics are within your control and make each interaction valuable regardless of the outcome. Third, cultivate multiple sources of fulfillment in your life. When romantic relationships are your only source of validation and happiness, you naturally become needy. But when you have a rich life, hobbies you love, deep friendships, a clear sense of purpose, ongoing personal growth, romantic relationships become a complement to your life, not the foundation of it. I know a man who used to be devastated every time a potential relationship didn't work out. He would pour all his emotional energy into every romantic possibility. Once he learned to let go of the outcome, he began to approach dates as opportunities to meet interesting human beings, with no agenda beyond genuine connection. The result? He stopped emanating desperate energy and began to radiate a calm confidence that was naturally attractive. Here's a powerful exercise. Before every romantic interaction, set your intention not in terms of outcome, but in terms of process. Instead of "I want to get a second date," try "I want to be fully present and get to know this person authentically." Instead of "I want them to like me," try "I want to find out if we're truly compatible." Detachment also applies to the timeline of relationships. Modern society is obsessed with speed. Dating apps promise instant matches. Hookup culture suggests immediate intimacy, social pressure to settle relationships quickly. But real connections develop at their own organic pace. When you're attached to a specific timeline, you may rush things that need time to develop naturally. You may push for exclusivity before you really know the person. You may force emotional or physical intimacy before genuine trust is established. But when you practice letting go of timing, you allow the relationship to unfold naturally. You're not trying to force artificial milestones. You're simply present for each step, enjoying the process of getting to know someone gradually. Here's the energetic difference people feel. When you're attached to outcomes, you emanate an energy of scarcity, as if this is your only chance, as if you need this to work out. When you practice detachment, you emanate an energy of abundance, as if you know that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. And ironically, this energy of abundance is what makes you truly irresistible. Not because you're playing hard to get or using techniques, but because you've developed a genuine inner security that doesn't depend on external validation. Detachment from outcomes doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply about the process, about being your best self, about treating others with respect, about creating authentic connections, but you're not attached to specific outcomes. You trust that if you keep growing and being authentic, the right people will show up in your life at the right time. This code, when truly internalized, frees you from the prison of romantic anxiety. You stop obsessively checking your phone. You stop analyzing every interaction. You stop living in the conditional future of what if. You start living in the rich, abundant present of what is. And it is precisely this presence, this ability to be fully here and now, that is the next code we need to unlock. Because in the modern world of endless distractions, the ability to be truly present has become a romantic superpower. The sixth code that is being unlocked now goes against all the programming of modern society. It is the code of patience, not as resigned passivity, but as an active force that allows the best things in life to unfold in their natural time. We live in an age of instant gratification. Food delivery in 30 minutes. On-demand entertainment. Instant answers to any question. Instant connections through apps. This culture of speed has created a generation of men who expect relationships to follow the same logic: quick results, instant intimacy, immediate definition. But real relationships operate in a completely different dimension. They follow the laws of nature, not the laws of technology. Just as a tree cannot be forced to grow faster than its natural rate, deep human connections cannot be artificially accelerated without consequences. The Stoics understood the difference between active patience and passivity. Passive patience is waiting for things to happen without doing anything. Active patience is continuing to work on yourself, continuing to plant seeds, continuing to grow, while allowing the results to manifest in their natural time. Imagine a gardener who plants a seed. He doesn't dig in the soil every day to see if the seed is growing. He doesn't try to speed up the process by over-fertilizing or over-watering. He simply keeps tending the garden, trusting that nature will take its course. But he also doesn't plant the seed and forget about it. He keeps watering it, tending it, weeding it. This is active patience in relationships. You continue to be the best version of yourself. You continue to develop your qualities. You continue to be authentic and present. But you don't try to force timing or speed up processes that need time to develop naturally. Why do relationships take time? First, genuine trust is built through consistent experiences over time. It's not something that can be established in one conversation or one date. Each interaction is like a small deposit into the trust bank account. When you try to rush this process, you may achieve superficial intimacy, but you don't achieve the deep trust that sustains lasting relationships. Second, real compatibility only reveals itself through different situations and contexts. You may have immediate chemistry with someone, but compatibility in values, lifestyle, life goals, ways of dealing with stress, these things only emerge with time and shared experience. Third, the process of getting to know someone gradually is part of the joy and magic of a relationship. When you rush through this process, you miss out on the delightful experience of discovering layers of personality, unique quirks, personal stories, dreams, and fears. It's like watching a movie at 2x speed. You can understand the story, but you miss out on all the emotional texture. Here's how impatience sabotages relationships. When you're eager to define the relationship, you may push for exclusivity before you're both ready. When you're impatient for intimacy, you may rush into physical connection without the proper emotional foundation. When you're in a rush to get the girl, you may skip important compatibility steps. But I'll give you a practical exercise to develop active patience. Whenever you feel anxious about when something will happen in a relationship, ask yourself these questions. What can I do today to be a better person? How can I be more present in the next interaction? What aspect of myself can I develop as this relationship develops? Redirect your energy from anxiety about timing to ongoing personal growth. Instead of obsessing about when will she respond, focus on how can I use this time to make myself more interesting. Instead of worrying about when will we be exclusive, focus on how can I be the kind of person who naturally inspires exclusivity. I know a powerful story about active patience. A man met a woman who was coming out of a long, difficult relationship. She told him honestly that she needed time before considering anything serious. Most men would have tried to speed up the healing process or given up. He did something different. He completely respected her timing while still being consistently present as a genuine friend. For 6 months, he didn't push. He didn't try to force romantic moments. He was simply a reliable, interesting, and supportive friend. He used that time to work on himself, develop new hobbies, strengthen other friendships, and grow professionally. When she finally felt ready for something romantic, he was the obvious choice, not because he insisted, but because he had demonstrated patience, maturity, and consistent growth. They have now been married for 4 years. She often says that his patience was one of the qualities that attracted her most. It showed her that he saw her as a whole person, not just a conquest. It showed that he had enough self-control and confidence to not need immediate gratification. Here's the paradox of patience: when you stop rushing, you often get to your destinations faster. When you stop pushing, you remove the natural resistance that pressure creates. When you demonstrate that you can wait, you demonstrate emotional maturity that speeds up the process of building trust. Patience also protects you from bad relationships. When you're in a hurry, you may overlook red flags or important incompatibilities. When you're patient, you have time to notice patterns, assess consistency, and see if words and actions are aligned. Most importantly, patience allows you to truly enjoy each phase of a relationship. The getting to know someone phase, the building friendship phase, the growing intimacy phase, each has its own unique pleasures. When you're always focused on the next phase, you miss out on the richness of the present moment. But patience without presence is just procrastination. And it is precisely about presence, about being completely here and now, that the next code will be about. Because in the modern world of endless distractions, the ability to be truly present has become almost a superpower. 7th code, focus on the present, the code of magnetic presence. The gift is the only currency that really has value in the bank of relationships. Here's a brutal truth that no one wants to admit: most men are mentally absent during 80% of their romantic interactions. While she's talking about work, you're calculating when you'll get to kiss her. While she's sharing a worry, you're mentally rehearsing your next joke. The result? You become just another forgettable man in her crowd of suitors. The 7th Stoic code reveals that genuine presence is pure magnetism. When you are completely here and now, something extraordinary happens. People feel a different energy emanating from you. It is as if you have turned on an invisible magnetic field. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He wasn't talking about New Age meditation, he was describing a devastating practical power. When you master your attention, you master the quality of your connections. Think about the last time you had a conversation with someone who was 100% present with you. Remember how it felt? It was probably one of the most interesting conversations you've had in months. Why? Because undivided attention is the rarest gift we can give someone in the age of endless distraction. But here are the obstacles that sabotage your presence: your anxious mind calculating future scenarios. What if she doesn't like me? Your ghosts from the past whispering past failures, you always screw up anyway, and the addiction to external validation that makes you perform instead of connect. The antidote is practical and immediate. First, develop the habit of sensory anchoring. During any important conversation, consciously connect with at least 3 senses: the sound of her voice, the feel of your feet on the ground, the environment around you. This pulls your mind into the present moment like a magnet. Second, practice stoic listening. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. Don't listen to impress, listen to connect. When she speaks, your sole mission is to be fully present with her words, emotions, and energy. This is revolutionary in an age where everyone is waiting their turn to speak. Third, cultivate genuine curiosity. Turn every conversation into an opportunity for discovery. Instead of trying to prove yourself, focus on finding out who she really is. Questions like "what really moves you?" or "what was the most memorable moment this year?" open doors that superficial techniques never can. The benefits of magnetic presence are immediate and compounding. Your conversations naturally become deeper because you're not on the mental surface. You start to pick up on subtle cues: a genuine smile versus a forced one, real interest versus social politeness. Fewer faux pas happen because anxiety lessens when you're not in the future or past. I remember one client who completely transformed his dating life by applying this principle alone. Before, he would come home exhausted, feeling like he had performed the entire evening. Once he mastered presence, he began to return energized, with conversations that flowed naturally and connections that deepened organically. The difference is tangible. A woman can sense when you're truly there. She can tell when your attention is genuine versus when you're mentally absent. And that perception determines whether you'll be memorable or forgettable. But genuine presence is only possible with a solid foundation of inner confidence. And that is exactly the code we are going to unlock now. 8th code, cultivating inner confidence, the code of unshakable self-esteem. The confidence that emanates from inner virtues is like a beacon, impossible to ignore, impossible to fake. Here's the difference between men who naturally attract and those who struggle desperately. The former have confidence based on solid foundations, the latter try to build castles on shifting sand. The 8th Stoic code unlocks a revolutionary truth. Genuine confidence does not come from external achievements or validation from others. It comes from the systematic development of your inner character. It is the difference between being a man of worth versus someone who constantly needs to prove his worth. Epictetus, who rose from a slave to become one of Rome's most respected philosophers, knew something most men never learn: your self-esteem must be independent of outside opinions. When you build confidence on internal foundations, virtues, competencies, personal growth, it becomes unshakable. Let's be clear about the difference between confidence and arrogance, because confusing the two is fatal. Confidence is knowing your worth without having to prove it to anyone. It's that inner calm that says, I know who I am and I'm okay with who I am. Arrogance is insecurity disguised as superiority. It's the man who constantly needs to prove how amazing he is because deep down he doesn't believe it. A woman notices this difference instantly. Genuine confidence makes her feel relaxed and attracted. Arrogance makes her feel uncomfortable and defensive. The former invites connection, the latter creates distance. The foundation of Stoic confidence is 4 non-negotiable pillars. First, continuous character development. You become confident when you know that you are constantly improving as a person. Second, real competence in important areas of your life. You don't have to be perfect at everything, but you should have mastery in some areas that matter to you. Third, acceptance of your imperfections as a natural part of the human experience. Paradoxically, accepting your flaws makes you more attractive than trying to hide them. Fourth, healthy emotional independence. Your happiness and self-esteem do not depend on external validation. Here are practical exercises that build real confidence. First, the rule of small commitments. Every day, do at least one thing you promised yourself. It can be simple: exercise, read 10 pages, cook instead of ordering takeout. Each commitment you keep adds credibility to your self-esteem account. Second, develop a skill that provides real value. Learn something that other people genuinely admire: playing an instrument, cooking well, speaking another language, mastering a martial art. Competence builds confidence because it is based on reality, not self-deception. Third, practice Stoic self-compassion. When you make mistakes, and you will, treat yourself with the same kindness you would treat a good friend. Don't be your own worst enemy. Acknowledge your mistake, learn from it, and move on. This approach builds emotional resilience that is pure magnetism. The signs of genuine confidence are unmistakable. You're comfortable with silences in conversations because you don't constantly need to impress. You can admit when you don't know something because your self-worth isn't dependent on appearing perfect. You don't feel the need to constantly prove your worth because you know what you are. And you can genuinely compliment others because you don't see life as a zero-sum competition. I had a client who was a brilliant engineer but felt invisible around women. We applied these principles systematically. He started keeping small daily commitments, he developed cooking skills he always wanted to have, he stopped seeking constant validation online. Within 6 months, the transformation was dramatic. Not only did his romantic life improve, his career took off, his friendships deepened, his overall energy completely changed. The difference in the quality of people he began to attract was astonishing. High-value women who had previously not even noticed his presence began to initiate conversations with him. Why? Because trust based on solid foundations is irresistible. But genuine trust allows us to do something even more powerful: Connect deeply through empathy. And that's our next discovery. Ninth code, practice of empathy and understanding, the code of deep connection. To connect hearts, you must first understand minds. Here's a secret few men discover: the quickest way to a woman's heart isn't through charm or technique, it's through genuine understanding. The ninth Stoic code reveals that empathy is a relational superpower that transforms superficial interactions into deep, magnetic connections. Marcus Aurelius practiced a powerful mental exercise. Before judging anyone, he tried to understand the inner struggles they faced. He knew that difficult behaviors often reflect unresolved personal pain. This perspective transformed conflicts into opportunities for connection. Stoic empathy isn't about agreeing with everyone or losing your identity to please others. It's about developing the rare ability to truly understand perspectives different from your own. In an age where everyone wants to be heard but few know how to listen, this ability makes you magnetically attractive. Think about the people who have had the biggest impact on you in your life. They were probably the ones who made you feel understood, who really saw you beyond the surface. That same magic happens when you develop genuine empathy. You become someone people feel safe being vulnerable with. Developing genuine empathy takes deliberate practice. First, cultivate curiosity about experiences that are different from your own. When she mentions something you don't fully understand, instead of judging or trying to relate it to your own experience, ask questions that demonstrate a genuine interest in understanding her world. Second, practice suspending judgment. Your mind automatically categorizes and judges. It's evolutionarily natural. But you can intercept this process. When you notice a judgment arising, stop and ask, what else could be going on here? What context am I missing? Third, develop the habit of validating feelings without necessarily agreeing with someone's position. You can say, I understand why this bothers you so much, without agreeing with their interpretation of the situation. Emotional validation is a rare gift that creates instant connection. Practical applications are transformative. When she shares a concern, rather than immediately trying to solve the problem, first demonstrate that you fully understand what she's feeling. Questions like, how does this affect you emotionally, or what would be most helpful for you right now, show emotional maturity that's irresistible. Learn the difference between listening to respond versus listening to understand. Most men are already formulating their response while she's still talking. This creates a disconnect. When you listen only to understand, with no agenda to impress or solve, something magical happens. She feels truly seen. The benefits of genuine empathy are compounded. First, connections naturally become deeper because you access layers beyond the social surface. Second, conflicts are resolved more easily because you understand the needs behind the positions. Third, you become magnetically attractive because empathy is rare and precious. Avoid these fatal mistakes: performative versus genuine empathy. Some people use empathy as a manipulation technique. They pretend to understand in order to get something. This is intuitively perceived and creates repulsion. Also, avoid assuming that you know exactly how the person feels based on your experience. Every person is unique. I remember a turning point with a client. He was about to end a relationship because she was too dramatic. When he learned to use genuine empathy, he discovered that the drama was actually untreated anxiety about financial security. Instead of judging, he offered understanding and support. The relationship not only survived, it became deeper and more satisfying for both of them. But empathy works best when you have inner emotional balance. Without that balance, you get lost in other people's problems. And that's precisely the final code we're going to unlock. 10th code, maintenance of emotional balance, the code of magnetic stability. The man who masters his emotions masters his destiny in relationships. This is the final code, and perhaps the most transformative. Emotional balance is what separates men who have dramatic, volatile relationships from those who create deep, lasting connections. The 10th Stoic code reveals that your emotional regulation determines not only the quality of your relationships, but also who you attract into your life. Seneca knew something most men learn too late: you can't control what happens, but you can control how you react. This simple distinction is revolutionary when applied to relationships. Emotionally reactive men create drama and instability. Balanced men create security and attraction. Let's identify the most destructive emotions in relationships. Jealousy is insecurity projected as control. You feel inadequate and try to control their actions to feel safe. Possessiveness is a fear of abandonment that suffocates. You hold on so tightly that you force the person to pull away. Desperation is an excessive need that pushes away. When you need someone too much, you become an emotional burden. Disproportionate anger is an immature reaction to normal situations. You lose control over small things and become unpredictable. Each of these dysregulated emotions creates the opposite of what you want. Jealousy pushes away rather than protects. Possessiveness suffocates rather than connects. Desperation repels rather than attracts. Uncontrolled anger frightens rather than resolves. Stoic emotion regulation techniques are practical and immediate. First technique, the Stoic pause. When you feel an intense emotion rising, stop completely. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, is this reaction proportionate to the actual situation? This simple pause prevents 90% of the emotional damage you can do. Second technique, question your interpretation. Your emotions are not caused by the events, they are caused by your interpretation of the events. She took a long time to respond to your text. Dramatic interpretation, she is ignoring me, she must be interested in someone else. Balanced interpretation, she is busy, I will give her space and focus on other things. Third technique, use reason to assess whether it's worth getting upset about. Ask yourself, will this situation matter in a week? In a month? In a year? Most things that throw us off balance are insignificant in the big picture. Fourth technique, practice radical acceptance of what you can't control. You can't control whether she chooses you, but you can control how you show up. You can't control whether the relationship will last forever, but you can control whether you are being your best self today. The benefits of emotional balance are magnetic. First, relationships become more stable because you're not constantly creating unnecessary drama. Second, you develop the ability to resolve conflicts constructively rather than reactively. Third, women are naturally attracted to stable men because emotional stability is rare and valuable. The signs of emotional balance are obvious. You don't need constant reassurance because your self-esteem doesn't depend on external validation. You can give yourself space when needed because you're not operating out of fear. Your reactions are proportionate to the situation. You don't blow up over small things or minimize important things. Imagine 2 men facing the same challenging situation. She cancels a date at the last minute. The reactive man bombards her with messages demanding explanations, creating drama, questioning her commitment. The level-headed man responds, "No problem, we can reschedule whenever it's convenient for you." Which one do you think she'll want to see again? Emotional balance isn't about repressing feelings, it's about processing them in a mature way. You still feel, but you're not a slave to your emotions. You still care, but you don't despair. You still want connection, but you don't need it to feel complete. With these 10 codes unlocked, you have the complete arsenal to transform not just your relationships, but your entire life. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and you have just taken the first one. If you've made it this far, it's no accident. You've just unlocked 10 ancient codes that transformed emperors, philosophers, and ordinary men into magnetically attractive figures. But most importantly, you now have a map for your own transformation. Let's quickly recap the arsenal you've acquired. You've learned that rejection is feedback, not failure, and that this perspective eliminates paralyzing fear. You've discovered that authenticity is more attractive than performance, and that being genuine attracts the right people. You've understood that continuous personal development makes you irresistible, because growth is life. You've mastered the difference between healthy persistence and desperate insistence. You've internalized that control breeds anxiety, acceptance breeds peace. You've learned that detachment is not indifference, but emotional freedom. You have unlocked the power of total presence, developed confidence based on solid foundations, cultivated genuine empathy as a relational superpower, and mastered the emotional balance that creates magnetic stability. These principles are interconnected and mutually reinforcing. They are not isolated techniques, they are components of a philosophy of life that transforms you from the inside out. The difference between this approach and seduction techniques is fundamental. Techniques are superficial and temporary, principles are deep and lasting. Here's the truth about transformation: relationships are always a reflection of your inner development. When you change internally, the external world responds. The people you attract change. The quality of your connections changes. Your entire life experience changes. But real transformation is a gradual process, not an overnight change. Be patient with yourself. Choose 2 to 3 principles to focus on initially. Practice them consistently for 30 days. Then gradually add others. Suggested daily exercise: every morning, choose one of the codes to consciously apply throughout the day. In the evening, reflect on how it went and what results you observed. This simple practice accelerates your transformation exponentially. Now I need you. If this video unlocked something in you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. In the comments, tell me which of the 10 codes touched you the most and why. Your answer may inspire other men on the same journey. Remember Epictetus' quote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Authentic relationships begin with personal authenticity. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot attract balance if you live in internal chaos. Your transformation journey begins now. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when you feel ready. Now. Pick a code. Apply it today. Start building the magnetically attractive man you always knew you could be. The emperor within you is waiting to awaken. Give him the chance.